Hi, welcome to Story Time. I'm Miss Teresa, and tonight we're going to read some bedtime stories. So let's get nice and comfy and get ready for our first story. Our first story is called When Sheep Sleep. So let's see what happens when it's sheep who are asleep. When Sheep Sleep by Numeroff. When you can't fall asleep, then try counting sheep. I've done that before. Who else has? But what do you do if the sheep are asleep? Look at all those very sleepy sheep. What is the little girl going to do? Count deer in the forest instead of the sheep. Together all nuzzled, they don't make a peep. There the little girl and her teddy, and they're going to count deer. But what are those deer doing? Yeah, they're sleeping. So count cows in the meadow instead of the sheep. But under the moonlight, they've fallen fast asleep. Our cows are all sleeping. I wonder what the little girl and Teddy are going to try and count next. Let's find out. Count pigs in the pig pen instead of the sheep. They wiggle in mud and snore in a heap. Those pigs, are they awake? No, they're asleep. Count puppies on pillows instead of the sheep. All cozy and cuddled, they curl up to sleep. Even the puppies are asleep. What about birds? Count birds in the treetop instead of the sheep. Dreaming high in their nest, they can't hear a cheep. There's Mommy and Daddy bird and the two baby birdies all asleep. So why don't we count cats on the sofa instead of the sheep? They're all purring softly, all snuggled, asleep. Oh no, the little girl and the teddy can't count the cats. They're asleep. Count bears in the cave den instead of the sheep. Their mom watches closely, their safety to keep. There's Mom and the two cubs. She's holding them all snuggly close, but I think she might be asleep too. Whatever are this little girl and bear going to do? Count rabbits in hutches instead of the sheep. Their noses still twitching, they lay fast asleep. With all of this counting, you feel like the sheep. At last, you are ready to drift off to sleep. Finally, the little girl falls asleep and all of the animals are there, all of those animals that she visited. The end. It took a while for that little girl to fall asleep, but after visiting all of those animals, she was finally able to fall asleep. And we're going to read another story about someone who's having a hard time falling asleep, and that someone is a bear. And he's having a hard time because he's having a sleepover. And our story is called A Bedtime for Bear. Let's see what happens. A Bedtime for Bear by Bonny Becker. Everything had to be just so for Bear's bedtime. His glass of water had to sit on the exact right spot on his bedstand. His favorite pillow must be nicely fluffed. His nightcap needed to be snug, and most of all, it had to be quiet. Very, very quiet. One evening, Bear heard a tap, tap, tapping on his front door. Uh-oh, and look at Bear. Does he seem happy to hear someone tapping at his door? No, I don't think he's very happy either. When he opened the door, there stood Mouse, small and gray and bright-eyed. He clasped a tiny suitcase in his paw. I wonder why Mouse has a suitcase. Let's keep reading and find out. I am here to spend the night, exclaimed Mouse with a happy wiggle of his whiskers. Surely we agreed on next Tuesday, protested Bear. Nope, said Mouse. You most definitely said tonight. Oh, said Bear. Uh-oh. I'm not sure Bear's very happy to have a visitor tonight, but maybe Mouse will make him in a better mood. Bear had never had an overnight guest before. Guests could quite possibly mess things up and make noise, and Bear needed quiet, absolute quiet at bedtime. Even so, Bear and Mouse enjoyed an evening of checkers and warm cocoa. Soon it was time for bed. Remember, I must have absolute quiet, reminded Bear. Oh, indeed, said Mouse. There's Mouse. I even think he's trying to tiptoe up those big stairs. Bear set out his glass of water, adjusted his nightcap, fluffed his favorite pillow, and climbed into bed. It was very, very quiet. He closed his eyes. Bristle, bristle, bristle. Bear heard a noise. It was Mouse brushing his teeth. Bear cleared his throat in a reminding sort of way. Most sorry, said Mouse. Bear closed his eyes again. Oh, poor Mouse. He was just trying to brush his teeth. There's Bear. He's looking a little bit grumpy. I think he's definitely ready for bed. Hum, hum, pa-pum, pa-pum, Mouse hummed while he put on his nightshirt. Pa-pum! Absolute quiet, muttered Bear most patiently. Deepest apologies, said Mouse. There's Bear. I'm not sure he's being quite so patient. Let's see. Maybe Mouse will just jump into bed, which, if we look nice and close, what's bed for Mouse? It looks like the drawer of the nightstand. Yeah. Creak, squeak, rattle, went Mouse's bed as he hopped in. Bear jammed his pillow over his ears, gritted his teeth, and closed his eyes. He was about to drift off when... Good night, Bear, Mouse called softly. Bear pretended he was asleep. Good night, Mouse called a little louder. My ears are highly sensitive, cried Bear. Really? How interesting, said Mouse. Uh-oh. I don't think things are going to go so well at this sleepover. Bear's starting to look a little bit angry with Mouse. Let's see, maybe Mouse will just cuddle up and go to sleep. Let's find out. Can you hear this? Mouse mumbled into his pillow. Yes. Amazing. How about this? Mouse said from under his pillow. Quiet. Mouse slipped under his blankets, crawled to the bottom of his bed, and whispered, Can you hear? Silence! Bear roared. Mouse slid from his bed, went into the closet, and said in the tiniest possible voice into the farthest, darkest, teeniest possible corner of the closet, "Surely you can't." "Will this torment never cease?" wailed Bear. "Sorry, Bear. Good night, Bear," whispered Mouse, tiptoeing back into bed, as quiet as well, you know. He's being quiet as a mouse. There's Mouse. Looks like he's already asleep. Bear fluffed his pillow, adjusted his nightcap, and waited. But there was no more sound from Mouse. At last it was quiet. Very, very quiet. Bear heard a shuffling sound. "Mouse, is that you?" No answer. Bear heard a crick, crick, crick on the floorboards. "I know it's you." No answer. "You can't fool me," Bear growled, but he didn't sound very certain. Bear heard a low moaning noise. "Mouse?" Silence. Bear was sure something rustled on the floor. "Mouse!" he cried. "Wake up!" Look at Mouse. He's jumping right out of the drawer. I wonder what Bear is hearing. Mouse stumbled out of bed, small and gray and sleepy-eyed. What is it? But Bear couldn't see any rustly, moany sort of thing in his room. His room looked quite like it always looked. "Nothing," lied Bear, still clutching his blanket to his chin. "I must have been talking in my sleep." Bear chuckled. It was rather quavery. "Ah," said Mouse with a glance at Bear. What do you think? Do you think maybe Bear is a little bit scared? Yeah, I think Bear might be a little bit scared too. And I think maybe someone can help him. Who do you think can help him? Yeah, I think Mouse can help him too. "Could I peek under your bed?" asked Mouse. "Sometimes I like to check for things, you know." "Well, if you insist," said Bear. "Nothing," said Mouse from under the bed. You'll want to check behind the curtains, I suppose," said Bear. "All clear," declared Mouse a moment later. You better check the closet," offered Bear. "Then you won't be the least bit nervous." Mouse came out of the closet, dusting his paws. "Not a thing. Thank you, Bear. Good night." "Wait," said Bear. "You'll want a bedtime story, I expect," said Bear. "For your nerves." For my nerves?" said Mouse. Oh, indeed, I'm quite shaken." "Oh, who wants that bedtime story?" Yeah, I think Bear wants a bedtime story too. Then, with an eager flick of his tail, Mouse settled on Bear's favorite pillow, and Bear told him all about the adventures of the brave, strong bear and the very frightened little mouse. Soon, Bear began to yawn. Mouse yawned too. "Good night, Bear," said Mouse. "Good night, Mouse," Bear mumbled. I think they're both fast asleep. Then Bear began to snore loudly, but Mouse just smiled. And soon Mouse and Bear were fast asleep. How funny was that? I think Bear was the one who wanted a story and who was maybe a little bit nervous to be sleeping, having that sleepover. And he had Mouse check all of those spots under the bed and in the closet and behind the curtains just to make sure everything was okay. We have one more story to share tonight. So let's see. Let's fluff those pillows and get nice and comfy and hear 10 sleepy sheep. Let's see what these sheep are up to. 10 Sleepy Sheep by Holly Keller. One night, when Louis couldn't sleep, Papa brought him a glass of water. Mama read him a story, and Grandma sang him a song. I think Grandma may sing like Miss Teresa, not very well, because if we look at the doggy's kind of covering his ears when Grandma's singing. But even after all of that, Louis was wide awake as ever. There's Louis, and there's Louis's doggy bringing him his blanket. Louis does look like he's not quite sleepy yet. So Grandpa tucked him back in bed and said, "Count sheep." Do you ever count sheep when you can't sleep? Maybe we can count with Louis. The first sheep had a red balloon. The second sheep had a drum. 3 and 4 jumped through a hoop. And 5 played an old tin horn. I didn't know counting sheep were this active. They're a little bit silly. The 6th sheep carried a plate of cookies. The 7th had some streamers. Something tells me these sheep are going to be having a party. 8 and 9 brought a bowl of punch, and 10 came blowing bubbles. I think this is a sheep party. Louis's room was full of sheep. Let's look at Louis. Is he sleepy? I don't think so either. How can Louis sleep with all of these sheep having a party in his bedroom? But there they are, and they danced around his bed and had a party. "Please," Louis shouted, "I'm trying to sleep." But the sheep were making too much noise to hear. So one by one, Louis picked them up and put them into bed. Wait, is Louis putting them in his bed? Uh-oh, where is Louis going to sleep? Let's keep reading. He brought each one a glass of water, read them a story, and sang them a song. Soon, the sheep were all asleep. There was nothing more to do. There's Louis. He's looking a little bit sad. Let's see what he decides to do. So Louis climbed in beside them and went to sleep. I think Louis imagined all of those sheep having that sheep party, don't you? There's Grandpa checking on him, making sure that counting those sheep worked. And it sure did. Louis is fast asleep. The end. Thank you so much for joining me for story time. I hope you enjoyed our bedtime stories. Good night.